The convent of Sant'Andrea had always been a place of order and silence, untouched by the noise of the outside world. Behind its stone walls, the nuns and clergy lived in devotion, their days guided by the tolling of bells, marking prayer, work, and rest. But all of that changed in an instant, shattered by a single photograph. It had begun as a routine task. Cardinal Lorenzo, a scholar of religious history, had come to oversee the restoration of the convent's library. Accompanied by the elderly and wise Sister Teresa and the young, enthusiastic Sister Anna, he was searching for a long-rumored secret crypt hidden behind the walls. Their focus was on moving a heavy wooden cabinet that had stood undisturbed for decades. The air in the library was thick with dust as they strained against the weight of the furniture. Just as the cardinal bent forward, urging Sister Anna to push with more strength, a worker entered the room. Without much thought, he snapped a photo, an innocent gesture, nothing more than an impulsive click of his phone. Yet that single image would set off a chain reaction none of them could have foreseen. The photograph, taken at an unfortunate angle, appeared to show the cardinal leaning too closely towards Sister Anna, his hands seemingly reaching for her in a way that suggested something improper. Within hours, the image had spread through private messages, then onto social media, where it became the subject of scandalous speculation. Sensationalist headlines took over: the cardinal and the nun, a forbidden affair? By the next morning, the convent's peace was gone. News vans and journalists had gathered outside its gates, cameras flashing, reporters shouting for a statement. The nuns, unaccustomed to such scrutiny, locked the doors and drew the curtains, bewildered by the sudden invasion of their sacred space. Inside, Sister Anna was beside herself with frustration. "This is madness," she cried, pacing her small chamber. "We were moving a cabinet. How can they twist this into something it's not?" Sister Teresa, ever calm, placed a reassuring hand on Anna's shoulder. "People believe what they want to believe," she said gently. "Truth matters little when a lie is more entertaining." Cardinal Lorenzo, though composed, knew the gravity of the situation. "We cannot allow this scandal to define us," he said. "The world outside is focused on that photograph, but they have no idea what we discovered in the library." Indeed, in the midst of the chaos, the significance of their find had been overlooked. Behind the cabinet, they had uncovered an ancient engraving, an inscription that hinted at a hidden passage. If they could prove the importance of their discovery, perhaps they could shift the narrative away from the scandal. Determined, the three returned to the library, poring over ancient texts and symbols. Then, Sister Anna found it, a cryptic phrase written in an old manuscript: "The key of silence is hidden in the light." Cardinal Lorenzo's eyes widened. "The light," he murmured. Could it mean sunlight? As the sun began to set, they watched as a beam of golden light filtered through the high windows, striking a single symbol on the wall. With careful precision, the cardinal pressed the symbol. A low, grinding sound rumbled through the room as the wall slowly parted, revealing a dark, descending staircase. But before they could step inside, the doors of the library burst open. Two journalists, cameras raised, had managed to slip past the convent's defenses. "What is this place?" one of them demanded. "Is this what you've been trying to hide?" Cardinal Lorenzo squared his shoulders. "You have no right to be here," he said firmly. But it was too late. The discovery of the crypt was now public knowledge, and whatever lay beneath the convent of Sant'Andrea would no longer be their secret to keep. The air grew colder as Cardinal Lorenzo, Sister Anna, and Sister Teresa descended into the crypt. The dampness clung to their skin, and the scent of ancient stone and dust filled their lungs. The flickering glow of their lanterns cast long, wavering shadows against the rough walls, revealing inscriptions and carvings that hadn't been seen for centuries. Sister Anna's voice was hushed with awe. "This place has been hidden for so long. What do you think it was used for?" Cardinal Lorenzo ran his fingers over a faded engraving in the stone. A crypt, perhaps, or a forgotten sanctuary. If the church sealed this place off, there must have been a reason. They continued forward, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. As they reached the bottom of the staircase, the space opened into a grand underground hall, its arched ceiling lined with crumbling frescoes. At the center of the chamber stood a massive stone sarcophagus, its surface covered in Latin inscriptions and symbols unfamiliar even to Cardinal Lorenzo. At its base, the words Silentium custodit veritatem, silence guards the truth, were etched deep into the rock. Sister Teresa inhaled sharply. This is no ordinary tomb. Before they could examine it further, a distant noise echoed through the tunnel behind them. The sound of hurried footsteps. Someone else was down here. Cardinal Lorenzo motioned for them to step back into the shadows. The dim lantern light barely reached the entrance of the crypt, but they could see figures approaching. Then, voices, harsh, urgent whispers. Take as many pictures as you can. This story will be bigger than we thought. Sister Anna's breath caught in her throat. The journalists, she murmured. Two men stepped forward, their cameras flashing as they captured images of the crypt. One of them reached out, brushing his hand over the sarcophagus's inscriptions. If this is what the church has been hiding, we have every right to expose it, he said. Cardinal Lorenzo stepped out of the shadows, his expression calm but firm. You have no right to be here, he said. This is sacred ground. The journalists recoiled in surprise. One hesitated, lowering his camera, but the other stood his ground. Sacred or not, the world deserves to know what lies beneath this convent, he argued. What are you hiding down here? Lorenzo stepped forward. What we are searching for is the truth. The same truth that you claim to pursue. But truth is not found in stolen photographs or half-formed stories. It is found in patience, in understanding, in uncovering history with respect. The journalist hesitated, glancing at his partner. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across his face. Sister Teresa's voice broke the silence. If you truly want to know what's here, then stay and learn. But if you choose to twist what you see into yet another scandal, you will only be serving a lie. A long pause. Then, with a reluctant sigh, the first journalist lowered his camera. Fine. But if this turns out to be something the world should know about, we won't ignore it. Cardinal Lorenzo nodded. Then help us uncover the truth, not distort it. Turning back to the sarcophagus, Sister Anna traced the letters with her fingertips. Silentium custodit veritatem, she repeated. Do you think this is what the inscription upstairs meant? The key of silence is hidden in the light? Lorenzo nodded. It's possible. Perhaps silence is not just about secrecy, but about listening, about understanding what has been forgotten. Carefully, he examined the symbols surrounding the inscription. Then, with a deep breath, he pressed his palm against one of the carved markings. A low grinding noise echoed through the crypt. The lid of the sarcophagus shifted. A rush of air, dry and ancient, escaped as the stone slid open, revealing what lay inside. It was not a body. Instead, a collection of aged scrolls and bound manuscripts rested within. Their covers were marked with seals bearing the insignia of an order long lost to history. Sister Teresa's voice was barely above a whisper. These could be centuries old. Lorenzo carefully lifted one of the scrolls. The parchment was fragile, its ink faded, but he could still make out the script. It was written in Latin, but something about the phrasing struck him as unusual. Sister Anna peered over his shoulder. What does it say? His eyes scanned the text, his heart pounding. It's a record, he murmured. A history that was erased. Sister Teresa's breath hitched. Erased by whom? Lorenzo's face darkened. By the church itself. The journalists, now caught up in the discovery, leaned in. Why would the church hide these? One asked. Lorenzo hesitated. Because some truths are inconvenient. And some history, once revealed, changes everything. For a long moment, silence filled the crypt. Then, slowly, Lorenzo closed the manuscript. We need to take these to the Mother Superior, he said, and we need to decide what to do next. But as they turned to leave, they realized something chilling. The noise from above had grown louder. The convent was no longer just surrounded by reporters. Someone else had come. Someone who did not want the truth to be uncovered. And they were not alone. The heavy stone door groaned as it slid open, revealing a narrow passage descending into darkness. Cardinal Lorenzo, Sister Anna, and Sister Teresa exchanged wary glances before stepping forward, their lanterns casting flickering light against damp stone walls. What had begun as a scandal, an ill-timed photograph taken out of context, had led them here, to a secret buried beneath the convent of Sant'Andrea for centuries. The air grew thick with moisture as they moved deeper underground, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. Symbols carved into the walls hinted at something ancient, something deliberately hidden. Sister Anna ran her fingers over the engravings. "These markings, they're older than the convent itself," she murmured. Cardinal Lorenzo nodded. And yet, they were meant to remain undiscovered. As they reached the end of the passage, they found themselves in a large underground chamber. The ceiling arched above them, decorated with faded frescoes depicting figures in hooded robes. At the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, and resting atop it was a sealed chest covered in dust and age-worn symbols. Sister Teresa stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. This must be what they were hiding. Lorenzo brushed away the dust, revealing an inscription in Latin. Veritas in silentio custoditur, truth is guarded in silence. His breath caught. The phrase mirrored the words they had seen before, carved above the entrance to the crypt. What truth? Sister Anna asked. And why did they bury it? Before Lorenzo could respond, the distant sound of voices echoed through the passage. Someone else was coming. Sister Teresa extinguished her lantern. We're not alone. They pressed against the stone walls, barely breathing as the voices grew louder. Flashlights cut through the darkness, and soon, the figures of two men emerged, journalists who had managed to slip past the convent's security. One of them gasped as he saw the chamber. This is it," he whispered. "We've found it." The other raised his camera, but before he could take a picture, Cardinal Lorenzo stepped forward, his voice calm yet commanding. "This is a sacred place. You do not belong here." The journalists hesitated. "The world deserves to know what you found," one argued. "You can't keep this hidden." Lorenzo gestured to the chest. "And do you know what's inside? Do you know what truth you are so eager to expose?" A heavy silence followed. Sister Anna stepped beside the cardinal. "If you care about the truth, then you will let us uncover it first. Not twist it into another story before we even understand what we've found." The journalists exchanged glances, uncertain. Then, one of them slowly lowered his camera. "Then let us see the truth together." Cardinal Lorenzo hesitated, then nodded. He turned back to the chest, placed his hands on its lid, and with a deep breath, lifted it open. Inside, beneath layers of ancient cloth, lay a collection of manuscripts bound in leather, their pages yellowed with age. Lorenzo carefully lifted one, his fingers trembling as he read the first lines. His eyes widened. "What is it?" Sister Teresa asked. He swallowed hard. "A testimony, a record of something, long buried, something the Church never wanted revealed." Sister Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. "Then the real question is, what happens now?" Outside, the convent was still besieged by reporters and speculation. But down here, beneath centuries of stone and secrecy, the real story was just beginning.